Hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Better Know a Highway, here on Virtual Road Trip, a series where we take a closer look at the interstates and highways that cross this vast country of ours. In this episode, we have one of the major north-south highways that stretches from the southeast all the way to the Great Lakes, Interstate 75. And real quick, before we get started, just wanted to remind you to please like this video and subscribe to this channel. Always appreciate that. Make sure to check out the VRT Discord. Link is in the description below. And if you want to support this channel, you can join as a member by clicking the join button below. And stay tuned to the end of the video where I'll give a special shout out to all my members. So thank you for that. And with that out of the way, let's get started. Interstate 75 is a major north-south running highway in the eastern half of the United States, running for a total of 1,786 miles through 6 states. Starting at the southern end, Interstate 75 begins in the state of Florida, through which it runs for a long trek of 470 miles, the most of any state along its route. 75 starts at a junction with Florida State Routes 826 and 924 in the northwest suburbs of Miami. Although long-running I-95 lies just miles to the east, the two routes never intersect, but are instead connected by other local routes and the spur, I-595. Traveling north along the edge of the suburban area, 75 junctions with the aforementioned 595, and then makes an abrupt turn west and heads straight into the Everglades of southern Florida. This stretch of interstate highway is famously known as Alligator Alley, and traverses the Everglades for roughly 75 miles of uninterrupted swamp, with very limited stops along the way. A toll is collected for this stretch, which takes drivers across the entire state in a nearly straight east-to-west line. Now nearing the west coast of Florida, and finally making a sharp turn back to the north, 75 re-enters civilization and heads into the Fort Myers metro area, the first of many metro areas 75 will pass through along the western coastline. Passing mostly west of the Fort Myers Clearwater area, and connected to it by numerous local and state routes, 75 then wraps around the city and moves back towards the coast just to the north as it crosses the Peace River. From here, 75 gets very close to the Gulf Coast as it nears and passes Sarasota, Florida, just to the east. Then soon after, it enters the Tampa metro area and Tampa Bay itself. Turning once again to the east, 75 makes a curved path around the bay, while a spur, I-275, heads west over the bay itself via the Sunshine Skyway Bridge and into nearby St. Petersburg. Then heading north and back east again, the spur heads into downtown Tampa itself and then back to its parent route. 75 also has a major junction with I-4 in the area, which heads east, bringing travelers eventually to the city of Orlando as well as the many theme parks in the area. I-75 then leaves the Tampa area and begins to head further inland, into the central core of the state, and then turning due north again to pass through places such as Ocala and the Villages. Now entering the North Florida region, 75 passes through cities such as Gainesville and Lake City, near the latter of which it has another significant junction, this time with the major east-west running I-10, the southernmost of the cross-country routes. It allows travelers to reach places like Jacksonville to the east or Tallahassee to the west. 75, however, continues north, and after a modest distance through mostly rural areas, it crosses into Georgia. I-75 cuts a line through the heart of the Peach State, from the southern border to the north, for a total of 355 miles. Shortly after crossing the state line, 75 reaches Valdosta, Georgia, staying just to its west. Then further north, 75 will pass several small cities and towns, such as Tifton and Perry, as well as large rural areas, before entering the Macon, Georgia vicinity. It's here where 75 junctions with both I-16, which itself heads east to Savannah, Georgia on the coast, as well as a spur, I-475, which provides a more direct route for express travelers. The two meet back up just south of Forsyth, Georgia, and then 75 heads northwest where it soon reaches the Atlanta metro area and its southern suburbs. Now within one of the most populous regions on its entire length, 75 enters Atlanta from the southeast, first reaching several spurs such as I-675 and I-285, then soon after having a junction with I-85 where it begins a concurrency of 8 miles, as the two routes wind their way into and through downtown Atlanta. Separating with I-85 just north of downtown, 75 heads northwest out of the city and into the North Atlanta suburbs, eventually reaching the city of Marietta, which it passes just to the east, and then has a junction with another spur, I-575. From here, 75 makes a run through the North Georgia mountains, staying on a slight northwest heading as it goes through the mostly rural area and passes small cities like Dalton, before finally reaching the northern state line and crossing into its next state, Tennessee. 75 runs through the Volunteer State in a jagged line from north to south for 161 miles. Immediately after entering the state, 75 reaches Chattanooga, Tennessee, mostly staying to its east, as well as a junction with the eastern terminus of I-24, which itself heads further into the state towards Nashville. 75, however, turns northeast, away from Chattanooga, to cross White Oak Mountain and follow the valleys of the Appalachian Range in that direction. Running through this large rural region on its now northeast heading, 75 eventually crosses the Tennessee River and soon after enters its next metro area of Knoxville, Tennessee. Before reaching the city proper, 75 junctions with another major east-west route, this one being I-40. It also begins a 17-mile-long concurrency with it as it enters the city core, where the two routes will then separate after a junction with the spur I-640. A short concurrency with another spur, I-275, ends just north of the city, and 75 continues on, this time heading back to the northwest, and back into the ridges and valleys, this time crossing them perpendicular. Now within the wild territory of east northern Tennessee, 75 crosses the Clinch River, and then heads deeper into the Cumberland Mountains, gaining elevation as it follows the mountain ridge to make a turn back once again to the northeast, for one final rural stretch before reaching the state line. I-75 travels the state of Kentucky through its eastern half, running for 192 miles through mostly rural terrain. Once north of the border, 75 meanders through the vast countryside for quite some distance, first crossing the Cumberland River near Williamsburg, and then passing other places, such as London, Kentucky, and Richmond. It gradually leaves the foothills of the Appalachian Range and enters flatter terrain as it nears the city of Lexington. Approaching from the southeast, 75 first has a junction with the east-west running I-64 on the eastern side of the city, and continues on as a concurrency with it for the next 7 miles, as the two highways wrap around to the west and connecting to many local beltway routes. The concurrency ends when 75 turns to the north, while I-64 continues west towards Louisville, and thus leaves the Lexington area as quickly as it entered. 75 re-enters rural terrain for the next roughly 55 miles in a constant northern direction, passing little of note. The next significant junction is with I-71, which approaches from the southwest and begins another concurrency with it, this time for approximately 20 miles or so, as both routes continue on into the Cincinnati metro area and its southern Kentucky suburbs. Soon after, a turn to the northeast is followed by passing the nearby International Airport and then finally crossing the Ohio River and out of the state. I-75 makes its way through the state of Ohio for 211 miles, traversing the western part of the state in a general northeast to southwest orientation. Immediately upon entering Ohio, 75 is within the city limits of Cincinnati, and passing the many landmarks and stadiums on the shore of the Ohio River, as well as the downtown core. The concurrency with I-71 quickly ends within less than a mile once within the city, and 75 continues north out of the downtown area and to a junction with the terminus of I-74, where it then turns to the northeast and into the northern Cincinnati suburbs. Junctioning with the spur I-275, which serves as a beltway for Cincinnati, 75 continues out of the area for several more miles before reaching its next city, Dayton, Ohio. Cutting into the center of the city, as well as making several crossings of the nearby Miami River, 75 has another major junction just north of Dayton and just south of the local airport, this time with the long east-west running I-70, which connects travelers to the state capital of Columbus to the east. Once north of Dayton, 75 enters the rural plains of western Ohio, passing through cities such as Lima, Findlay, and Bowling Green, while also making a turn to the northeast and then back to due north to head in the general direction of Lake Erie and eventually the city of Toledo. Just south of the city, 75 has another major junction with an east-west route. Actually, this time it's two, with the concurrency of Interstates 80 and 90, both major highways with heavy traffic. Then, 75 crosses the Maumee River to reach downtown Toledo, and proceeds to wrap around to the east, surrounding the city and its northern suburbs while junctioning with two local spurs. 75 soon approaches the shore of Lake Erie and makes one final turn north to reach the state line and leave Ohio. I-75's final state is Michigan, which it traverses the length of from south to north for an impressive 395 miles. Hugging the western coast of Lake Erie, 75 begins its time in the Great Lakes state by heading in a slight northeast direction for some time before eventually reaching the Detroit metro area. There are numerous junctions that 75 has as it makes its way around downtown Detroit. First, a junction with I-96 occurs just before reaching the city core. Also in this area, 75 provides access to the nearby Ambassador Bridge, which crosses the international border into Windsor, Ontario, across the Detroit River. Then turning to the northwest at a junction with the spur I-375, right next to both Ford Field and Comerica Park, 75 soon after has yet another junction, this time with the long-running I-94. 75 then serves the outer suburbs of Detroit, providing a crucial link for commuters into the downtown area. Then, slowly, it heads deeper into the state and other smaller cities along the way, such as Pontiac, Flint, and eventually Saginaw, as 75 approaches Saginaw Bay. A junction with the long-running I-69 occurs along the way near Flint, and 75 hugs the bay for a short distance before once again heading into the center of the state to make a trek due north, thus now entering a rural and heavily forested region. Traveling for a significant distance through this area, passing only smaller settlements, 75 eventually reaches Mackinac City and the majestic Straits of Mackinac. In order for 75 to continue on, it must then cross the appropriately named Mackinac Bridge, a large suspension bridge with a span of 3,800 feet and a total distance of over 26,000 feet, as it crosses the deep body of water separating Lakes Huron and Michigan. Having been in use since 1957 as one of the longest suspension bridges in the world, it is a true engineering marvel. Once drivers make their way across the bridge, they officially enter the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and the final stretch of I-75. Most of this section is similarly rural to much of the terrain to the south, and 75 meanders its way slightly northeast to its final location of Sault Ste. Marie, a city on the St. Mary's River. After a couple exits, which provide access to the small city, 75 has its final segment as it crosses the Sault Ste. Marie International Bridge into the Canadian city of the same name. I-75 officially terminates at the international border halfway across the bridge, and thus ends its epic 1,786-mile run. Well, that's going to do it for this long-awaited episode of Better Know a Highway. About time it came out, right? Before you go, though, I just want to make sure to say thank you for watching, and to make sure you hit the like button, and to subscribe to this channel. Always appreciate that. Also, make sure to check out the VRT Discord. Link is in the description below. And if you want to support this channel, you can join as a member by clicking the join button below. And I want to shout out my members, or member, for now, by showing it right here at the end of the video, like I said at the beginning. And thank you very much for your support. It's very much appreciated. And once again, if you want to help me out with this channel and support it, just click the join button below. And with that out of the way, once again, thank you for watching, and Until the next time, make sure you enjoy the ride. And up next, our first segmented highway, Interstate 74. And I'll see you then.